Hi, good morning everyone. Let's get started with the next topic for this training session, which is on SAP client concept. So what is a client in SAP system? Okay, client is actually a unit of the SAP system that is technically, organizationally and commercially self-contained. Basically, it has its own set of user master data, application data and customizing based on table key ranges. Technical implementation of clients. All users exist in one specific client within an SAP system. Application data, that is the master data and the transaction data, belongs to one specific client. Say here I am showing you the example of client, that is client 100. We can have any number of client, and the naming convention also, it's basically a 3-letter word, and it should have its own user master data, own application data and own client dependent customizing data. So that is basically what the client is. And here you can see in this particular figure I am showing two different clients, that is client 100, client 200, and at the bottom you can see there is a cross client customizing. You have the repository object, which is like tables, structures, programs, transactions, function modules, and you have the different technology like FI, CO, HR, PP, MM, SD. Basically this is finance, controlling, human resource, production planning, material management and sales and distribution. So this is basically the cross client data, that is across the client this data remains the same, but at the top what you are seeing is the client, a particular client which has its own users, it has its own user master records, basically it has its own authorization concept, it has its own application data, for example orders, invoices and so on, and it has its own client specific customizing as well, for example company codes, plants, storage location and so on. Same thing goes for clients 200, it has its own set of this data. Okay, now data in an SAP system. Data in an SAP system can be divided into two categories. One is client specific data and client cross client data. So client specific data, basically the applications customizing user master which affect only one client. Cross client data, that is the cross client customizing data and all repositories which affect the whole system environment. ABAP dictionary is a data dictionary that is part of the ABAP repository. Okay, now client concept. Data from different client is kept separate at the kernel level. Open SQL statements executed by an SAP application use the client number in the where clause. Although a table may contain data from several different clients, the where clause limits access to particular clients. The following are client specific data, that is user master data such as parameters, user groups, customizing data such as organizational units, assignments and document types, then the application data such as business transaction data, material master data. The client concept can integrate several companies or subsidiaries in a single client by using company code and the SAP authorization concept. Company code defines the smallest corporate organizational unit for which a complete self-contained set of accounts can be drawn up for external reporting. The SAP authorization concept enables the parent company to access all subsidiary for report purposes, while subsidiary specific data is protected against access from other subsidiaries through company code definition. So here in this slide you can see there is a development and customizing, there is a quality assurance, there is a production client. Okay, so the standard client roles fulfill optimal minimum requirements of your system. See, that is the customizing client where the development takes place, is the central customizing client where complete adaptation of the SAP system to customer specific needs takes place. All changes performed in the client are recorded, so they can be supplied to the other client using the transport management system. Client QTST, that is the quality assurance, is used to test and verify the new customizing settings in the application. Client PROD or production is the client for production activities, that is where your company's business is carried out. Customizing changes imported into this client have to be first tested carefully in order to ensure that production operation is free of disruption. To realize the full benefit of a three-system landscape, every critical client should have a separate SAP system. Okay, so these are the other clients, like you have sandbox, test, training. Okay, now additional client within an SAP landscape may include what we just saw is a sandbox client to experiment with transactional data and setting, test client to verify customizing changes against sample data in a more stable environment. This can be done by copying customizing settings from the customizing client to the sandbox. This is called a unit test. Then an end user training environment, a client that satisfies customer specific requirement. Okay, so that's what actually I wanted to cover in this particular session. Thanks for joining and have a nice day. Bye bye.